Can you hear it loud? The world is ready. Stand up proud. Your story is power. Your passion's the spark. With Innovate AI and i3,
I wish I could clone myself, right? You ever think about that? As a kid, I always thought about that. I was like, gosh, if I could just clone myself. And now we can. And so I want to share with you a few things that I think are transformative in terms of the potential of AI. And first, I want to acknowledge Silver City, Denver, for hosting us so graciously. This is an amazing space, a lot of rich history here. And it's an event space that you can actually rent out for art exhibits and different, whatever types of functions. There's conference rooms upstairs and an amazing rooftop as well. And when we talk about the ability to clone ourselves, I want to share this because the cloning technology has come a long way. And there's some things that if you don't know what you're doing, which I didn't know, and you'll see in this video clearly what can happen, it can have the outcome that you don't want, right? And so I want to share this with you. I think it's a little bit of fun too.
Digital clone advantage. Scale with AI twins 24/7. Let me ask you something. What if you could be in 100 places at once? Closing deals, delivering...
Looks like a bad martial art movie from the 70s, doesn't it?
Still having dinner with your family. That's the promise of an AI-powered digital twin. A clone of you that looks, sounds, and thinks like you. Now here's the truth. Most founders are drowning in busy.
I took a video from another thing and uploaded it, and it was thinking like, so it's like, wait a minute, I didn't know it was going to do that.
A digital clone changes everything. It can deliver your pitch to investors while you sleep. Train your team consistently without you repeating yourself. Answer customer questions in your exact tone and style. Even create content, emails, blogs, videos as if you wrote it yourself. This isn't about replacing you. It's about multiplying you. It's about creating a scalable version of your genius. So you can focus on strategy, relationships, and vision while your twin handles the rest. Think about it. Would you rather spend your energy chasing tasks or building a legacy that works around the clock? That's the digital clone advantage. Your AI twin, your voice, your impact, working 24/7, so you don't have to. I'm excited to show you how it works.
So, pretty funny, right? I mean, that's not something you would want your clients, your customers to interface with. And it's evolved a little bit. This was several months after that, and some of you may have seen a little bit of this yesterday.
Are you ready to transform your business operations and overcome the challenges holding you back? I'm Dr. Eric Goodman, and given my track record of proven results in strategy and change management, I know how overwhelming it can be to navigate today's fast-paced business environment.
I think there's a little bit of lag. It actually was not the lip sync issue.
En estrategia y gestión del cambio, sé lo abrumador que puede ser navegar. Aber das muss nicht so sein. Stellen Sie sich einen Arbeitsplatz. 不知所措，许多中小型企业。Du fardeau des tâches répétitives.
You get the idea, right? So the ability to actually interface with people across the globe. I remember reading a book by Thomas Friedman, The World is Flat, right? Think about it. Like there's no excuse for not having an impact in whatever market you want. Dozens of languages, it doesn't matter. And so what's cool about it too is a lot of the technology is, you can do it with images, and I'll share some examples maybe of that, but certainly voice, and you've got video as well. And a lot of people are doing digital twins for creating social media. We had a session yesterday talking about social media. Ultimately, when you think about it, then there's the interactive twins. And this is one I did about almost not quite a year ago. I think it was last October that I created. This one was created. Not the greatest in terms of it was me not knowing the camera and the lighting when I did it as well. But it's still very good. And what's cool about it, it's interactive. And this was actually at an event just a couple months ago. And one of the things that this individual was interested in, we were at a session, he wants to create a course. So I said, well, why don't you just ask my twin about creating a course? So this is what this recording is. And I basically captured that interface of him with my twin.
Hi, I would like some information on Creating a drug and alcohol recognition course for CDL supervisors.
Creating a drug and alcohol recognition course for CDL supervisors is a meaningful initiative, especially given the critical safety implications in the transportation industry. To design an effective program, you'll want to focus on a few key areas. First, ensure the course aligns with the Department of Transportation's DOT regulations, particularly the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FMCSA requirements. Supervisors of CDL drivers are mandated to undergo training that enables them to identify signs of drug and alcohol misuse. This training must cover the physical, behavioral, speech, and performance indicators of probable misuse. Next, structure the course to be both educational and practical. Start with foundational knowledge about the effects of drugs and alcohol on the body and mind, emphasizing how these impairments can impact driving performance and safety. Include specific modules on recognizing signs of impairment, such as changes in behavior, physical appearance, or performance. Real-world scenarios or case studies can be particularly effective here, as they help supervisors apply what they've learned in a practical context. Incorporate interactive elements to engage participants and reinforce learning. For example, you could use role-playing exercises where supervisors practice identifying signs of impairment and determining the appropriate steps to take. Visual aids such as videos or images can also be helpful in illustrating key points. Don't forget to include a section on the legal and procedural aspects of addressing suspected drug or alcohol misuse. Supervisors need to understand their responsibilities, including how to document observations, conduct reasonable suspicion testing, and handle situations sensitively and professionally. Finally, consider leveraging technology to enhance the course. Online platforms can make the training more accessible and allow for interactive features like quizzes or simulations. You might also explore AI-driven tools to personalize the learning experience or provide real-time feedback. If you'd like, I can help you outline a more detailed curriculum or suggest specific tools and resources to use in developing the course. What stage are you at in this process? Are you looking for guidance on content creation?
You get the idea, right? Pretty cool. Yeah.
There's a long monologue, like
You can adjust it to whatever. I could say one sentence, and you can go back and forth. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the beauty of the tool. And, you know, obviously in training the clone, when we do that for individuals, the amount of material will vary that they have. Mine obviously has millions of words and information from me and then that's an iterative process. But you can use it interactively. We've got another version I use with my coaching clients. So they've got access, and obviously this one too, but that one in particular, my clients can access my twin 24/7, and they can do that. And so I invite you, I don't want you to interact with it right now. I'm not giving you the video access, but this will give you an opportunity to call and talk to me about anything, pretty much. And I'll tell you, like, that's not I don't know, like, that's not my area of expertise. It's trained on a lot of things, just by way of background. Actually, some of you don't know, because I didn't build that into this. Dr. Eric Goodman, I'm a recovered academic, having earned my PhD at the University of Colorado at Boulder, was a professor over a decade as a business school dean, leading one of the nation's largest colleges, many years as a chief academic officer, VP academic type roles. And in that process, and that's why, like, it is actually trained on curriculum and instructional design and everything else, because I've developed over 1,000 courses with different programs at different years, from certificate custom training, corporate stuff, to doctoral programs. So it knows a lot of things in a lot of different fields, but it also really is a specialist. I'm a business strategist and AI expert, so you can ask questions in those different areas, ask questions, of course, in mindset, business strategy. A lot of other high performance, human performance is sort of where I excel. And so I've translated that knowledge. I'm a master practitioner in NLP and certified in a lot of other things. So it knows a lot of different stuff. But you can absolutely have it go through a process if you've got sort of a more structured thing that you want, a way of interacting with individuals. But think about this, having a twin to be able to interact with somebody who visits your website or calls in. And obviously with conversational AI, some of you were at the session yesterday where we talked about that a little bit more. But ultimately, you can train it in a lot of different ways. And so feel free to check it out. And you can chat with us as well. Just ask a question about something. And I've had people said, like, oh my God, like, I've been struggling with this one thing and I just chatted with your thing. and problem solved. Like I had no idea. I never thought of that. And some of the people that have worked with me know I'm an out of the box thinker. And so like I will help, and my twin, that was probably the toughest thing, is making sure that it had that same capability to draw from a lot of different areas in that process. So I want to share that with you as my gift to you. So really, when you think about having a twin, you know, this idea of clones, it's so powerful because ultimately, think about this. And as I shared, like I can be in bed and someone can be interacting, getting help 24/7. It doesn't matter. I can be like, hey, I'm going to be out of pocket next week. And sometimes, and like this week that happened with some of my clients. I'm like, I am tied up this week. I've got 13 plus sessions, you know, at this startup thing. But you know what? This week, I want you to do this with my twin. And then we'll resume next week. And they're like, oh, great, you know. So you can manage that. It's like, you know, the best next thing to you being there or interacting that you can have it serve you. And it doesn't get sick. It doesn't sleep, you know. You get the idea, right? 24/7. And the cool thing is not just with your clients, but how many of you have a team of people? Any employees? A few of you do. Ever onboard somebody? Ever have somebody ask you a question about something in your company? What if that was trained on everything you know? And rather than asking you, you know what? You go there first, and if you don't get the answer, and you can also, from an HR perspective, this is a really cool application, or compliance, we can build it so that, you know, anyone ever have a AI tool hallucinate on you and make stuff up, right? Most of them do. We can make sure that doesn't happen, so that it's only pulling from your employee handbook. It's only pulling from information that you have told it, only use this in interacting. And if it doesn't have the answer, then there's a process to escalate it as well. And obviously with the one I'm giving you access to, it's not one you can phone call in, but that's a possibility as well. This one is just one you can do through online, but you can call and you can chat with it. So at any rate, I think part of it is, you know, the opportunity to interact with a clone. And this is a big opportunity, guys. Think about it. You know, the ability, you know, people say you can't buy time. Well, AI can help you buy time. And the exciting thing for me, like having a twin, a clone, like I dreamed of that since I was a kid. Like there's so much to do. I don't have enough time. But now I do. And even the clients we work with, even without a twin, just with the AI tools, we can at least help people reclaim a day, if not 2 or 3 or 4 in their week, and put their business on autopilot and some of the tools. And if you're sticking around, you'll see some of that with another session later about AI agents as well. But $156 billion estimate by 2030. Pretty big market. Just a little fraction of that, I'll take that. 34% annual growth estimated year-over-year expansion. And the adoption rate still very slow. So look around the room. Anyone have a twin in here? No, okay? So that 8% isn't even representative in this room, not one person. You are missing an opportunity to make a huge impact with what you're doing in your business. And you know, the current reality is this, and you heard me say this if you're at the session yesterday, it's like stop trading your time for money. Stop doing $10 an hour work, right? And if you find yourself, again, repeating those same conversations, and one of the best ways of training is understanding what are those things that you're constantly being asked, that you're tired of answering the question to. Those are the first thing we want to make sure that your twin knows to be able to answer for other people, right? There's things like that. And of course, again, I already said it, like, you know, I want to take a vacation. Well, your business stops. How many of you are solopreneurs? Like it's you. How many of you are taking vacation when it's you, like to making the time? I've worked with some CEOs sometimes, and they're like, when was the last time you took a vacation? And they're like, gosh, it's like, what is vacation? Like, it's been like 7, 8 years in some cases. One guy that I was working with, like, oh my God, like life is too short. So, and for me, some of you heard the story yesterday about my dad being killed in a car accident. Life was short for him, unfortunately. And he didn't have the opportunity to do the things that he wanted to do. But if he had a twin, oh my God, he would have been living the life that he imagined, that he dreamed of much earlier, rather than waiting for that someday aisle when you retire and you can go do all the things you want. Now you can have your twin at least free up some of that time and space to do that. And this idea of, time zones. I know I've had to get up at times like at 2 and 3 in the morning when you're doing stuff in other countries and everything else. Now I can actually have my twin go to a Zoom call. It's crazy, but it can actually, you can minimize that, or it doesn't have to be a Zoom call, but you get the idea. The time zones become irrelevant for assisting clients in other countries as well in terms of what they can do. So, what it does, obviously, it captures the essence, your voice pattern, your thought, your language, your wisdom, and works 24/7, and it's unlimited scalability. Like, you can serve, like, how many of you meet one-on-one with clients? Like that, okay. If you're doing that versus one-to-many, you can be one-to-many. And people are asking me, well, we have a sales presentation we do, and there's only so many people that are doing it. And as part of and we've got these discovery calls we do with clients and stuff. How could we use a twin? Well, absolutely. You can have your twin deliver your presentation to a client. They can hop on a Zoom and do that and walk through the same thing. It's just, and interact and talk about whatever questions the person has, just as if you were there. Think about that. Is that crazy? It still blows my mind. Like, that's possible. And we're doing it now. And so the ability to scale, and again, I think the limited one-to-one interactions before you have a twin, and it's based on what hours you have, and it's only one you. And if you're not working, you're not making money, right? And ultimately, when you are hiring somebody, how many of you ever tried to train somebody and they don't do it exactly like you want, right? Takes a process. Same thing with a clone, but once they get it, like the quality control and the things like I was talking about, to know that they are actually accurate in the information they're sharing with clients and they're not going to make something up, that's priceless. Think about all the headaches you could have eliminated. Think about your past if you ever had something like that happen where you had to do damage control because maybe somebody said something that they shouldn't have said to a client or prospect, right? So again, it's an exponential model in terms of the number of interactions, global, and the growth without being burnt out and just being able to generate revenue while you sleep. And the cool thing for me is, obviously my coaching clients get access because they're paying for the broader services, but I can also provide more access to them, and there's an interface where they can just pay monthly, or if they want more time with my twin, it's the same thing. Now, I don't charge as much for my twin as I do for me, so there's some advantage to that as well, but you can monetize it in ways, and there's just so many different ways of applying it, which are really powerful. I think some of the real world applications, obviously for consultants, for educators, advisors, coaches, speakers, creators, if you've got any thought leadership or expertise in a field, how many of you have some expertise in some area? Okay, every hand should have gone up in this room, right? You're an expert in something. I know every one of you knows something I don't know, and you can do a lot of things better than I can do. So you have expertise. Don't sell yourself short. Figure out what is your gift, what's your zone of genius, and how do you monetize it? And people building twins, teaching gardening and doing other things and whatever it is, cooking, I mean, it doesn't matter. And it can be just your intellectual property, something that you're doing, a method or a framework that you have, or a way for your customers to access what you're doing. And typically when you think about the process, because I get that question a lot, like, okay, what does this look like if we were actually to do something where, first of all, it's understanding what do you want your clone to do, right? No different than when you started a business. Like, what am I doing? What's my vision? What's my mission? What's my purpose? What's the transformation I want to create in the world with what I'm doing? And as you do that, it's really that foundation and making sure you've got all of the information you have. And we were talking about writing books with AI at the earlier session. I talked about examples where, like, there's people that have been doing podcasts, like a prime one all the time. I had an individual who created a clone who had over 400 podcasts. It's like, you think there's some voice and information he shared in 400 podcasts about things? Like, why not make that available to your audience so they can actually interact with you? And rather than having to listen to 400 podcasts to try to figure out, like, did you ever talk about this? They can just ask him and say, what can you tell me about this? And it'll figure out from that, all those episodes, what's out there. Or we're with the book thing too. Like you could have your book, obviously, in and trained, part of the training process for your clone. So then people can actually interact with you talking about your book. And it knows, obviously, your book backwards and forwards. So it's just endless in terms of the possibilities that you can do. But it's building that phase, figuring that out, the personality, the communication style, and then you're basically building it. You're using the different, and there's a lot of different platforms out there. It doesn't, I'm focusing a little bit more on the interactive right now, but ultimately the same thing applies with building just a video like Avatar that then you can have create a video for you, which is what you saw in that bad first example I gave you, which is basically you give it a script and it starts talking in your voice and in your likeness, or it can just be an audio clone as well. It doesn't have to be video. But ultimately you're training it, you're testing it, and then you launch it. And you want to do a controlled rollout, obviously. You want to get the feedback from people and make sure it's working and track the engagement. And the nice thing is, depending on the systems you have, you've got feedback on the videos maybe you're putting out on social media. If it's an avatar of you, you can look at the engagement and track a lot of those metrics on the back end of its performance, the virality and things like that as well. And if it's your interactive type of situation, there's metrics you can look at also. Most of the systems have some things built into them to be able to understand that. So I wanted to share a couple things, because if you do embark on this, and I shared that example of a bad avatar at the beginning, is you don't want to rush the training phase, because if you do, you're going to get generic responses that don't sound like you, that don't reflect your knowledge and information. And that's something like that I can see. And it's just being patient, and it's making sure too that you are testing your clone. You are kicking the tires on the toughest questions if it's interactive or doing something else. And even if it's an avatar clone, you don't want to set it and forget it all the time. I think you can do it pretty well with some of the social media stuff, but you want to make sure, checking in on the videos it's creating, that it's, the script, the inflections now have gotten way better. But sometimes there's some things that can be quirky. So you just don't want to, you want to have that human in the loop, which I think is important for all AI to have. And then lastly, I think making sure that you have defined boundaries around what you're doing and the types of situations. If it is an interactive, that doesn't really apply to an avatar or an image clone that you might generate. But again, when you do that, if you prepare and take the time, and then you put in the guardrails around like handoffs from the clone, if there is something it can't answer, to make sure there's a path to escalate to you or to someone else who can answer that, so you can get the help. I know I used to go nuts, and there's still some of them out there, although at least the organizations I interface with are less and less, where you get stuck in that voicemail hell and you're like, I just want to do this, or even you're talking to them and they got these old AI agents, if you will, that aren't trained well and they don't work. So my goal is to eliminate those from my experience, at least. And having that makes a big difference. Of course, you also want to think about security and legal protection. There's things like that, what does that look like? And, they're not optional. You need to really consider that, because you want to have things in place, and you can have liability issues. And it wasn't one that I was involved with, but I heard about somebody who had trained a twin and in a counseling, coaching type setting. And obviously how you're using that, and you want to make sure that, there's HIPAA compliance issues in the healthcare field and things like that as well, depending on the application, that where that information, where it resides, where it's being stored, the type of information that is actually stored is in compliance, just as an example. And then you could run into an issue where if the clone isn't trained well, or has the knowledge in like nutrition and maybe suggests something that leads to an unintended consequence for the person that was relying on that information, there's some liability concerns as well. So you want to, be cautious when you get into these interactive clones in terms of that. Obviously, if you're scripting it and doing a video clone, just talking with what you're doing, there's that. And then you've got other regulatory things, and there can be some things that now they're starting to look at the nature of AI interactions. I talked about best practices around, that human in the loop, also making sure that you're looking at the metrics. And again, some of it's the response accuracy, the engagement. What does that look like? And if it is something where you're using it as a lead magnet or a chat, you can actually have these twins, go through the process, and then with other automations, once it's sort of qualified a client, then obviously lead to booking, scheduling an appointment, or even purchasing something. So what are your conversion rates? Looking at that, like that whole pipeline of interaction, so that you understand that. And then ultimately, what's the satisfaction of the users? And the data now, surprisingly, because there's a lot of people that don't know what they're doing out there, but it's really good. Like, people actually are enjoying interacting with clones sometimes more than the human being, because it's a little bit more efficient and targeted, and it doesn't have as many tangents in the process that might come up otherwise. Yeah, question.
Is there any use cases that are more favorable for twins than others? Like we talked about counseling and we talked about gardening. Are there some that are more
Not
reacting to more?
Not that I'm aware of yet. I could look at that. It's a really good question. I think in some of the settings, actually, there is some work being done with some of the twins where, with the right, HIPAA and things like that, where they are applying it. What they're finding in like the counseling setting, that the results they're getting are better with twins than with a human being. And I think, yeah, there's, even though it's a virtual person, there's a sense of detachment from it. And as an educator, I helped online universities launch, back in the 90s, and helping schools do that. And with distance learning, we saw the same dynamic in terms of the type of interaction. And if you, like COVID, like those remote workers, like there's something that it just sort of, that distance gives you a little bit more latitude in terms of maybe how you act and behave, and the transparency. It's like, and for different people. But yeah, it's a great question. So ultimately, there's a lot of opportunity, and I think it's thinking about, for you, what are those things that you would like to have a twin doing? Like, and if you did that, how many hours would you save? What are those tasks? And it doesn't have to be a twin. I mean, there's a lot of other AI things you can automate too. But understanding what those are goes a long way. And then, you can calculate and look at it in terms of the lead qual, those questions, appointment scheduling, a follow-up, all the other things that it can do, initial consultations, things like that, and just the ability to manage, this at scale. And I think that the first mover advantage, it's not just about being early, it's about building that moat, if you will, that protects you from your competition, and you've got that uniqueness. And so it's a both and, because sometimes the first movers are not the ones that perform the most. Yeah, question.
So a couple things. One, I'm a coach, and I'm noticing the application here is lead magnet, maybe triaging people into the actual call with the real person.
Could be.
Do you use it for content as well? Do you recommend using it for front-facing content?
Yeah, I mean, the interactive stuff, I mean, when you say using it for content, it's trained on that. I mean, you can use avatars absolutely all day long for content. And I strongly advise an avatar, not necessarily interactive for the content delivery, because what you can do, and actually I'll share a little bit of that. I don't know if we'll see time permitting when we talk about AI agents, but imagine this, being able to take your article or your blog, how many of you have newsletters or things you send out? What would it be like to not only send that out, but have that same content, but a version of it that's appropriate with you actually delivering that content that's on the YouTube channel, for example, that auto posts. You don't touch it. You just feed it the script, or you take your newsletter, convert it to an engaging script that makes sense for video. Because a lot of people will make a mistake like, oh, let's just have my clone use this. It's like, well, yeah, it wasn't written for the purpose of maybe sharing in that medium. So we want to make sure that it is crafted in a way, and that's where with our AI tools we can help make sure that is part of the back end process. But all day long, I mean, content is king. And influencers, right? I mean, whether it's on TikTok, Instagram, it doesn't matter. LinkedIn, your ability to generate content multiplies, and the ease by which you can do it, and even taking your book. And some of you saw yesterday the reels that I generated from just one long form video. you know, dozens of reels quickly with a click of a button that then auto post out to all your social media. You can do the same thing with your avatar. It doesn't have to be a video you are actually in. You can have your twin create the video and then create tons of reels and push it out. So there's a lot of opportunities. Great question. Okay. So when you look at the opportunity, I think it's ultimately about, and I want to open it up for some questions. I'll maybe share one other things, but you know, I think we're going to see more real-time clone conversations, bottom line. I'm working with an individual that's got some things going on globally where they're looking at how do you use twins, and it's particularly relevant because it's in some other countries where they're doing economic development activities. And imagine, like, no different than onboarding a new employee, having twins that are experts in entrepreneurship and starting a business that can help all these microeconomies in Africa and different countries create businesses because you've got a mentor 24/7 that they can talk to or interact with. Think about that, right? Powerful stuff. It's coming. And it's exciting to be a part of that effort. And so when you look at, you know, also industry-specific personas, and the thing about it is that AI is evolving, and the biggest gap is still around empathy and emotional intelligence and human connection. And I think having been involved with what was considered one of the first tools for AI with empathy several years ago, back in actually 2018, 19, what I see is that becoming more of the reality of some of these avatars and clones that are out there, so that you preserve that human element. So we'll see what happens. But I do want to share one thing with you too, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull up something because we've got a few minutes. But I want to show you like just how easy some of this stuff is. And so I want to show you. Anyone have a voice clone? Okay, 1, 2, 3. What systems did you use to create your voice clone? 11 Labs. 11 Labs. Okay, perfect. There's a bunch of different ones, but I happened to pulled up 11 Labs. So literally, you know, you can go in and you can choose all sorts of different voices in here, whatever you want. There's dozens of them, different languages and everything else. You can just set it. Like I want Maya Angelou. I want these voices. But you can just go in and say, I want to create a clone. And I just want to do an instant voice clone. There's more professional, it takes a little longer process. But I can say, I'm just going to record it. I don't know now that I'm hooked up the way I am. Hopefully it'll recognize my microphone. We'll test it and see. Yeah, I'm at Denver Startup Week, and well, I guess I could start the button. That would help. Yeah, I'm at actually Colorado Startup Week with a bunch of amazing entrepreneurs that are learning about digital twins and how to take their business to the next level, how to actually save time and money and make money 24/7 while they're sleeping. So I'm going to stop there. So now what I can do is basically, it's going to create based on that voice. I'm just going to call it Eric CSW. I can save that voice. Thank you. Minor details will get you every time, right? So I'm going to, let's go ahead and take it for a test drive. Let's go back actually text to speech. And I might have something in there. Yeah, I do. I still have something in there. So let's see.
Welcome to the future of business. Imagine this. While you sleep tonight, your business is still closing deals, training clients.
Does it sound like me?
Your brand. Not because you work harder, but because your voice, your influence never went silent. This isn't the future. This is now. Voice cloning lets you multiply yourself, scale your message 1,000 times over, and dominate markets while your competitors are still chained to the clock. The question isn't, can I do this? The question is, can I afford not to? Because in the age of AI, the entrepreneurs who don't clone themselves risk becoming irrelevant.
Sounds like a young version of you.
Yeah? Yeah, well, what's cool is, so you can actually do all sorts of things to manipulate it too. So I can have it slower or faster. I can adjust the stability for more inflection. I can also increase the similarity. I didn't put any style expression on it or style exaggeration, but I can do that and I can adjust some of those things and then I can actually regenerate it. You got to know like what all those different things mean to do that.
Welcome to the future of business. Imagine this. While you sleep tonight, your business is still closing deals, training clients, and building your brand. Not because you work harder, but because
It's faster. I mean, you notice the difference, right?
This isn't the future. This is now.
So,
Voice
You get,
Cloning lets you multiply yourself, scale your.
you get the idea, right? So if you're interested in learning more, would love to help support you in getting your time back, making more money, and everything else. So we'll take a couple questions. Yeah.
2 questions. Voice cloning, that tool, what was it called?
It's 11 Labs. 11 Labs is probably the best tool out there. Synesthesia, it's spell out 11. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Okay, I'll come back to you. Let's take one over here.
Oh, does the 11 Labs do your image, your face as well? Or is it?
They do not yet, no. If you're going to do some of the image stuff, well, actually, I think they may be moving into HeyGen is probably one of the better tools. I see some heads nodding. Those guys that were both doing voice cloning using HeyGen. Yeah, okay. So that would be my recommendation. If you're going to create an avatar, HeyGen is one of the top platforms out there. Yes.
You had mentioned this in the beginning, because I heard that you put on, you just said everyone here is an expert at something, and we probably need to interact with customize our people we speak to. So it can't just be a voice clone, it has to be something that interacts with expertise. Is that something you can call your expertise?
Oh, yeah. You came in late. Yes, absolutely. So I shared an example that I'm happy to share more about that. But you can take all of your expertise and train your twin on everything you know so that it can interact with that content. So in the back, and then we'll come up front.
When I clicked on your link for the clone, it said you were using Delphi, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Would you recommend that still, or is that something that was popular 1 or 2 years ago? What's your recommendation?
It's still a very solid system for that. I mean, there's some other ones that are out there. It just depends on your use case. And Delphi had a video clone that you just, I think a couple weeks ago, took sort of offline to be able to enhance it further. But, and then there's other types that, depending on what you want to do, there's like character AI and replicate and things that do different aspects of interactions, and each one has a unique thing. So it's probably best if you have a specific use case, then I can probably guide you a little bit better. So, and then you had a question up front.
So what for different languages, and it pick out, like if I'm speaking in French and
Yeah,
like
that's what's super cool. So it will actually, you can train your clone and you can have it start in a specific language, and you can choose, like, I want it to speak German or Hungarian or whatever. But you can also have it, and it will recognize then what language the person's, like if you talk English and they start speaking Spanish, it'll switch and speak Spanish back to them. So very cool applications for that. Yeah.
So if we use it for customer experience, like for CX purpose, is there a way to scale it? Do they expose their APIs? How does it?
Yeah, I mean, all this stuff is you can scale. I mean, all these tools have done a really good job of being able to integrate with APIs and different setups. Not when I say all of them, but a lot of them have taken that. That's where things are going, right? So it's a great question. So in the interest of time, I know we've got another session starting up in a little bit, but I want to invite you to, there's a cooler in the back with some beverages there. Feel free, the far left one, to help yourself to anything in there. And if you came in late, I want to let you know that we are video recording these sessions, and we invite you to check in. There's some signage on the wall there and on the back wall, and probably when you came in also. And part of checking in will allow you to select, would you like a video of this? So you can learn and rewatch this, not only this session, but all of our other sessions. And the other thing that we've done is partnering with Murphy's Photos. There's a selfie station back there. But we've got an Ignite with AI challenge, and you'll get that information about that when you do scan in. But you have an opportunity to get some really cool AI tools, one of which will help you understand like how you can actually build your business. And as somebody who has been a business strategist for decades, I think it's a pretty darn powerful tool. And I've had some people that just started with it, and it was intended to create an impossible goal for your business. Some of you were at the session yesterday where we talked about 10x being easier than 2x. Or 1,000x being easier than that, whatever it is. It's that moonshot for your business. And I've had people that started working in that tool, and wasn't intended for it, but they literally built their whole business on it and are crushing it because of the information in there. And I'm like, well, that's phenomenal, because I just wanted it to help you, guide you through that, but then it keeps going and going and going, and I want to do this and the business plan and like everything else. So powerful stuff. But you have an opportunity for that. Another program that we have, we're going to be doing a 3-day basically challenge event with AI, and you'll have access. You earn points by using and posting things on social media about your experience in this session. We're going to invite you to, at some point later in the day, probably, some of you would love to share. I'd love to learn what you learned, and we may be capturing some testimonials about your experience. And at a minimum, asking you to say, hey, I was just at this session, and I had no idea of this. People need to know. Like, not one hand went up in this room that you had a digital twin yet. So understanding that, like, post a reel, talk to people about what's going on in the world. We would love that, and just acknowledge, what's going on. Tag us. Obviously, the instructions are in there. And you earn points up into including custom AI songs. You heard some examples of that this morning when you were coming in. And then a suite of other AI tools to supercharge your business based on who's earning the most points, going sort of viral and promoting what your experience is here. So please do partake in that. And I hope you have an amazing time and learn something from today. All right. We'll be talking AI agents at the top of the hour.
No more waiting, the moment is now. You've got the tools, we'll show you how. Let your